Welcome everyone. AFL season off. It's the off season. It's live. We've had nothing happen today, but that doesn't mean the content stops. As always, I'm joined by a rotating guest, and I've got a fan favourite. We loved him last year. We always see Big Damo. Damo SC. Damo, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, Pommy. Would have been doing better if something had happened today, but just twiddling thumbs waiting for the next big bomb to drop.
Well, I mean, it happens, and we have talked about this, me and Let Dog, a lot. When they extend anything in the AFL by a day or 2 days, usually them extra days are just filler days, and you kind of leave yourself thinking, if we just kept it as the 3-day trade period, we probably have enough content for 3 days. Instead, now, it's gone up since I've been here 7 days now in total. It's now 10. Like, it still is. We won't be doing anything until the last 3 days of the window.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with what people are saying. Like, started on a Monday and ended on a Friday. Like 3 days is probably enough, but 5 days is probably going to be the sweet spot eventually. But
yeah,
this 10-day charade, we know clubs have already talked to themselves and talked to each other plenty of times. I don't know why they need 10 days to get everything done.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it always happens. I know when they extended it the last time, it was always like a deal that they try and pretend is holding it. It's like Neighbours. They have the storyline that you know eventually is going to open up into a bigger storyline. And obviously, we'll touch on them storylines today, but we'll get through the news. The news, although not much has happened, it has. And obviously, the first deal we're going to talk about, which was technically yesterday, is Mr. Jack Graham joins the West Coast Eagles for a compensation pick, even though he is an unrestricted free agent. How the AFL works is sometimes you do get compensation picks because the AFL just makes things up. So Jack Graham goes over there for a concessionary pick, which is at the beginning of the second round. Was it not, Damo?
End of second round, currently 42.
End of second round, sorry. Yeah, so not a great, exciting deal in the terms of draft, but probably what West Coast Eagles want, isn't it? They need some more mature, seasoned vets, don't they, to try and bring them kids through the ground?
Yeah, they're coming from a long way back, and they kind of dropped off that cliff really, really quickly. But, I mean, they've still got a talented list, and we saw what they could do earlier in the season. Like, they completely ripped Melbourne apart in that game middle of the season where Harley Reid probably announced himself on the big stage, but it was maintaining that sort of play for the entire season that they struggled with. And obviously Elliot Yeo missed a few games. Tim Kelly missed a few games. They couldn't get Jake Waterman to play too many games in a row towards the back end of the season. Oscar Allen was only just returning from a long-term injury last season. So all these guys are going to be better for what last season produced, but it's also a case of they need some experience. They need some guys who have been there and done it to kind of coach them, to kind of lead them through. And I mean, I don't know how long it'll take before they're back up and winning again like they usually do. And when they're winning, as much as I hate it, it's actually good for WA football. It actually makes the WA Football Commission happy when the Eagles and the Dockers are both up and about, because it makes WA footy nice and financially stable. Whereas at the moment, with West Coast going down, one of the biggest clubs in WA in the country, with West Coast down, there's actually struggling to get some money through the door for a lot of the WA football clubs. So West Coast need to be back up and running for everything in WA football wise to get going, and getting West Coast back on track with Jack Graham and bringing these sorts of guys in the door is a top priority.
Well, I mean, for us Victorians who are a bit naive, West Coast and Fremantle are juggernauts out there. I mean, I know they're the only two teams in the AFL, but even when they were in the waffle, they were like the Collingwood Carlton of that era, weren't they? The Waffle, that they're two native teams, so they are manically supported. Like when you go to WA, it's probably one of the few places I've been to that they don't have Victorian clubs. You know, when you like go to like Queensland, most of them have a Victorian club. Like WA, like they're big followed, aren't they? It's like a family lineage type thing.
Yeah, most households are either all the way Freo or all the way West Coast, and it comes back from the Waffle days and how they've gone into the AFL from being a Waffle club or having connections to a Waffle club. So yeah, massive support over here.
And let's have a look at it. You'll see on your screen now, you'll have a little calculator that we've produced. Big shout out to Let Dog, who spent about 800 hours with me making this. So that's always good. But you'll see here, the actual pick was 42. If you see, that's what the AFL gave. And this value you'll see here is the value of if you had a 2-year contract predicted. This is the contract in what we're suggesting the landscape is based on the average age of the player, games played. So, for once, this is one of the few times that we actually agree with the AFL compensation scheme. I know Richmond fans out there are saying we should have had a pick in the 12s and 13s, but probably fair value and probably a good trade all round because Richmond ain't going to use this pick. This is not going to be, in my opinion, a bit of waffle in the back end of trade deals, but West Coast get the player they want.
Yeah, for sure. And as much as Richmond fans love Jack Graham, he's the sort of player that you can replenish through the draft, and pick 42 is about right for the sort of player to select to replace him pretty comfortably. And there's lots of those sorts of guys in the draft this year that can come in and play Jack Graham's role pretty well. And there's already players on Richmond's list as well who can do the job if they get the opportunity.
Mate, I couldn't agree more. And the other bits of, suppose we'll go through them. Fremantle have announced that Max Noble looks set to stay on for another year. Hiwago Yo from Gold Coast has been cut. The Giants have confirmed Jack Stringer is undergoing their test to make sure he's a good fit, so they have interest. And Hayes is having a medical at Collingwood Football Club. Some exciting news there.
I would have thought Jack Hayes would have been more suitable at the Brisbane Lions.
Well, that's a great lead up. I promised Pixel would ask it. He's asked about Riccardi. And Ken has asked about Tim Membry to the Hawks. Few forwards literally out there, aren't they, at the moment? And Brisbane are really one to watch, aren't they, in the terms of that? Danaher is a big loss. But when we get onto the picks, you'll see Brisbane have nothing in the terms of buying power. So unrestricted free agents, these freebies are probably their best avenue. Do you feel that Brisbane are going to maybe surprise us, or is it Brandon Ryan? Because we know that he was highly sought after at the Hawks. Are they just going to put all their faith in him for 12 months?
I was talking to Tim Mitchell from the Herald Sun, and he was saying that he wonders if, we knew 12 months ago that, we're learning that 12 months ago that Joe Danaher kind of signaled that he'd go around once more and then maybe retire if they won the flag. They did bring in Jack Gunston, but then Jack Gunston wanted to go home. So they brought in Brandon Ryan. Is this them bringing in someone ahead of time to learn the system behind Joe Danaher out of the spotlight to then be able to be unleashed now that Joe Danaher has stepped aside? Could we see Brandon Ryan with Eric Hipwood and Logan Morris in that forward line now? Have they planned this so meticulously that everyone else is kind of blind to the whole succession plan that they've thought out? Because people talk about Sydney being really good at developing their players and Geelong being really good at developing their players, but just quietly, Brisbane aren't too bad themselves.
I agree with you, and I think that's a great point that you make, Damo, as well, that obviously it's come out that this isn't new to Brisbane. That Fagan was quite honest that he had a quiet word with Danaher asking, can you just give us another year? Which would indicate then that the Ryan deal did come out of nowhere, if you remember it. It was literally, okay, cool. Suddenly Ryan's presented as a Brisbane player, and it was kind of one of them ones that was understated. Maybe, like you say, Fagan's gone, look, we've got this young Ryan in. Morris needs another year. Can you work with these guys? Give me one more year and we'll let you go. Rain or shine. End of the year. They could be one of them teams that maybe has prepared for the worst and their plan's already set in stone.
Yeah, and Jack Hayes is a player that people have talked about as potentially being someone they could go after, but who knows? Like, he's not contracted, and you actually have to trade for uncontracted players for some reason. But I don't think Brisbane would want to give up very much for Jack Hayes. They've talked about Sam Day being a free agent. He's barely got a hip at this point. Remember that had to get completely reconstructed or whatever it was a few preseasons ago. Matt Taberner doesn't know if he has a backbone anymore to even play football. And those and Tim Membry, he's still actually on St Kilda's list, but without a contract, and won't be with a contract until after October. So none of these guys are going to come for free if they want to grab someone, but other than the two that I mentioned that probably aren't even up to football standard anymore. But so having Brandon Ryan, having Logan Morris, they've even talked about Henry Smith as someone that could potentially fill that role already up their sleeve, might be beneficial to them, means they don't have to jump up and down to try and find a replacement.
Mate, it could be, and I think Membry might be an option for him because they have dangled that carrot. I've got a sneaky feeling that Membry might be, and Brisbane are probably in the position to do this, if they are looking for it, because I think Ken's call here about him going to Hawthorn as a backup for Mitch Lewis, I think that's a clever idea. I can see this being one of them PSD ones, them pre-season draft ones, where they're like, okay, you know what we'll do? You're not going to offer him a contract. If you get there, you get there. But there's a few options there, like Nathan Kruger as well. These are players that I'm looking at, that some of these teams I think may just cover the base. But I agree with you. Ryan looked okay at Hawthorn. He wasn't a world beater, but he didn't look like a Muppet, if you know what I mean. So he has some potential, and they've hidden him pretty well, if that's the case.
Yeah, well, remember he was a mid-season draftee. So before he got selected by Hawthorn in that mid-season draft, he must have shown something at VFL level to, give the Hawks some sort of idea that he could play, and then Brisbane beyond that for them to want to enter into a trade. So he must have some sort of ability, and hopefully we get to see what that ability is over the next 12 months.
He did kick Gorna goal fast as well in the back end of the VFL. He was kicking a fair few snags. I remember him. He tore Dom McHugh at Carlton, a new bottom when we played Carlton. He did look very good, but we do go on to exciting stuff. So that is your daily wrap. That is just how hard the list managers have worked. A lot of free coffees at AFL House. A lot of probably. What do you reckon they have? Party pies? I reckon party pies are at AFL House.
Yeah, party pies, maybe some spring rolls.
Oh, yeah, bob on. There'll be some spring rolls, but we got a few trade suggestions. So a few of you are asking about pick 13. Let's get into it. Gold Coast have got probably, in reality, the easiest but hardest decision to make. Pick 13 is hotly contested. We talked at the top of the show, every year there is a pick swap or a deal that is kind of like the domino deal. And it seems to be the domino deal here. And John Ralph released today what he believes are the 2 pick offers for them to consider. So we've got the first one. Collingwood have offered a future first Mr. Noble, and they want 23 and a 13 to come back for them. Now, we value John Noble around on that calculator 653 points, which is roughly a pick in the mid to early second round, which I think is fair value. If you speak to Collingwood, they're estimating it's 800 to 900, so it's a late first. But complex one. Carlton have just thrown it out there. Future first, future second, meaning Carlton have to bring a future second in by the end of this window to fulfill the AFL list rules. And you can see there that they just want pick 13 back. Value of 13.97, which works out roughly at pick 10.2, is what Collingwood will get. I mean, what Gold Coast will get, where obviously, dependent on how you look at it, depends what Suns value Noble at. They're actually taking a loss with a potential future first for Collingwood. And these values are based on the bookies of where they think the teams will finish. So that's how we've ascertained the future value. And remember, next year, the picks aren't worth as much as well. So that's got to be taken into account this year. If you watch the video we did earlier, we will have explained that, so you'll be experts. But would you say this is simple? And chat, let me know. Carlton's is the better one. Do you think this is as simple, though, as it seems? Because I don't think 23 holds as much value as people think, given the fact it's not going to be used because Lombardo, they still own pick 29. Could this change if they maybe offered pick 33 to even it out and jumped up the draft with their first selection then?
Yeah, I don't know if the Collingwood's offer is as good as Carlton's. I think they're both pretty good offers to get from a Gold Coast perspective, but all of this is to try and get Dan Houston, you would think. And how funny would it be if Dan Houston then decides he wants to go to North Melbourne? Because North Melbourne have offered a future first straight to Port Adelaide, and but if we talk about this, yes, something needs to get evened up for Collingwood in the Collingwood deal to make it worth it for Gold Coast. But as you said, like, they don't need pick 23 because it's going to get caught up in the Leo Lombard bid, whereas Carlton, they're trading their future second, so they need to bring in a future second somehow from somewhere else, which where are they going to get that from? Is that what they hope to get for Matt Owies if they eventually trade him?
Well, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because, I mean, we're going to come on to the other teams where we can maybe try and guess who's doing it, but you'd imagine for Carlton to do this, I will say this, Carlton obviously have a guarantee they can get a future second. Like, that there has to be a guarantee somewhere here for Carlton to even offer this, that there is a home and hosed future second. It would be, because I've actually looked at the AFL punishments. The AFL punishments for breaking this can be a ban from the draft for up to 3 years. So you don't want to do that with Tasmania coming in a couple of years. Like, that's destroyed your list. So obviously Carlton have got that. But I do want to talk about this. Pick 13. Why pick 13 is valuable? Because a load of people have said, why can't Carlton just go future first, future second to Port? Port's list spot is horrendous at the moment, isn't it? So it's absolutely horrendous. And we're going to come on to that in a minute. So they want a pick this year. Like, that is obvious. So that's interesting, because I think the only way you could match this is North's bid, where it's going to be a top 3 pick, isn't it? So maybe Port would be willing to do that because it's a future first. But Carlton and Collingwood, you're expecting top 8, aren't you, at worst, when you're trading that? I mean, unless there's that. But they do want a ready-made player, and Spectral Gaming makes that great point. And the Dan Rioli one isn't as straightforward, because today Gold Coast did come out and say that they want something back for the that it's not as straightforward as one pick, and they've confirmed 6 is. So this could be a really interesting one as well, because 23 may be involved in that deal, which if Dan Rioli is pick 6 and 23, Jesus, Dan Houston's price is 4 times that.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Rioli and Dan Houston, there'll be people out there in list management land, in fan land, in wherever, in lots of places, who would consider them the similar players or similar value. But Dan Houston, you would argue, is the more valuable player just because of how he fits into the Port Adelaide landscape and the fact that he is on a big lucrative contract currently and only about a couple years into it. So, yeah, I think that the Richmond deals with Fremantle, West Coast, Gold Coast, whoever else they've got, there might all need to happen basically all at once, and it won't be like a 4-way trade, but it's probably going to be something very, very, very close to it.
Mate, I agree. It's going to be fascinating, because I think Richmond hold the key here as well, because they're obviously doing the right thing. They're trying to monopolise picks in that top 20, and they're going for a rebuild. And I actually, Uze at their B&F said that we're going to hit this draft hard. We're going to bring in the next Premiership team in this window. So you look at where their picks are. I've got to implore them that at the moment they have literally nailed picks where the key forwards are, the key defenders, where a ruck is, where the midfielders are. Like, you can see they've had that mind of, we can go bang, 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 bang. We've got it. Now, Matt asked this. This is really interesting, because there is, if you go through the draft order, and there is a few players that are starting to, we know Big Sammy Layla. It looks like he is locked to Richmond, and Richmond have made no surprise of that. So most list managers, and after his combine, most people think he's going top 3. So that suddenly slides everything else up. You look at where 11, 12 and 13 are with the bids, you can almost work out that if Carlton want to hold that, there's a reason. There is a reason they're holding 12. And the second part of it is, why would you trade a 12 now, hoping you get 13 back? Like, that is madness as well. Like, just saying to Port now, we'll cut out Gold Coast, you've still got to get this 13 deal done. So the agreement will be, I guarantee, even though it's dodgy, Port will say this. Look, Carlton will offer 13 in the future first and say, who are you taking with 13 first? They'll say that and have like a private agreement. We will stiff you with 12 to make 13 more valuable, because they'll see that straight away. So hopefully that answered your question, that they're not going to guess that they'll get 13 and lose the player they want.
The only issue with what you just said is you've said 13 and a future first, but if Gold Coast accept that offer from Carlton, they won't have a future first to deal.
Oh, I meant Carlton, if they get 13, they'll go future. The rumours are it's future first and 13 for Dan Houston. Carlton won't.
But how, aren't they offering future first and future second?
Oh, sorry, yes. So Carlton won't be able to do that at all anyway, because it's either a future first or a future second is going to appease Dan Houston. Like, Carlton will be in a lot of trouble then, as you say. Like, if it is a future first, 13 ain't worth a future second. But even if it is the future second and 13, it's a huge risk, isn't it? Because suddenly, Collingwood want 13, not just for Dan Houston. They also want to have it for personnel. And I don't think they'd sniff the draft, even though they said they want ready-made talent. Like, their pick swaps are screwed at the moment as well.
Yeah.
But it's going to be an interesting one. You know me, I'm still against Dan Houston, and I hope he ends up at Collingwood, because I think this is way too much mess at the moment. But Here is the other deal. Richmond are sniffing around pick 20. And we talked about this with Let Dog the other day. This is one to watch. John Ralph has literally, over the last couple of days, been copying Pom's homework because he almost copied my video trade yesterday for Port and Gold Coast, word for word. And instead of saying he's got an algorithm to value Noble, he said, this is roughly how much Noble's worth, and gave my figure. So, John, I know you're watching, mate. Unblock me on Twitter, brother. But we're now going to do his work for him. So he's copied this. He's copied that they're looking for it. Pick 20. That Richmond are going to look for it. Now, why are they doing it? If you watched the show the other week, we talked about Brisbane have 20, 60, 73. They have to match bids on Levi Ashcroft. Should be top 3. Probably top 5 because the AFL are dodgy. And somewhere between 20 and 25 will be Sammy Marshall. Meaning 20, 60 and 73, unfortunately, in today's system, doesn't add up to the points needed. So we looked at this trade here, I have, and looking at Richmond's list situation, they could probably afford to give 42, 43, 45 and 51 up, which is an excess of 430 points. It allows them to cover one bid, right? Which at the moment, they can't even cover the Levi Ashcroft bid. As we explained a couple of weeks ago, only his team, Fremantle, have ever gone into deficit above 100 points. The AFL does have coverage for expected 999 points. I don't think they'll allow them to do that. But this would allow them to not do that and still be within the purview. What do we think of this? And this leaves Richmond with 120, 24, 32, 61, 70 and 76 in this year's draft. So you can see here, before Bolton and all them deals, some really good picks straight off the bat.
Pick trades are always confusing to me, and I think it's because you only get as many picks as you have list spots once the draft actually rolls around. So if Brisbane only have, 3 or 4 list spots, then is 42, 43, 45 and 51 going to be the only picks that they take into the draft? Or are we going to see them delist a couple more players and promise them that they'll pick them up in the rookie draft just that they can have the extra picks? Or there's all these sorts of ways that clubs get around that rule. But hey, if pick 20 is of interest to Richmond, they're going to have to probably offer maybe even a little bit more than just those 4 selections.
It could be interesting as well, because I know John Ralph, it did make me laugh because he added 61 and 70, which are like 14 points. I was thinking, I did my research based on what Damo said, that they would have to like delist players that are still in contract too, like just to facilitate. And I was like, it's 14 points, John. They're not going to do that. Like, that's a lot of work for 14 points off Levi Ashcroft. But this here, if you look at it, and we'll come up to another screen, currently they've got 3 list spots. They have 3 more out of contract. They've got 6. So if Brisbane did this, that's 4 plus 2. That's 6. It's the miracle number. I did it.
Okay. Yep. So who have they delisted? Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah. You've worked it out. I don't have much more to say.
Yeah. So obviously this works out, but this is one of the deals I think he's got a chance, because Brisbane currently have got Pryor, Beacon and Craven to deal with.
Do you see this deal going down before potentially the Bolton or Baker or Rioli deal? Because I know Freo don't want to give up 10 and 11. But what if they gave up 10 and 11 and got Bolton and 20? Like, what if that's what they've agreed with Freo? So Freo then go into the draft with 18, 20 and 30. I
could see it. I also am laughing is, if anyone watched my mock trade draft, I copped so much hate from people for suggesting North and Eagles would trade down. I'd watch that as well, because I had Richmond doing a very similar thing to this, and then doing what you suggested with Fremantle, helping you out to get one of them picks, and then launching for 3 and going, tell you what, if we can have 1 and 3, this is brilliant. Like, we get the best available player, we get the guy we want, and that's why I think Sam Layla's one to watch. I don't think they take him with pick 1, even though he's a great player. I don't think he's pick 1. But 3, if I had 1, I'm taking that risk because I've got the guy who I know is going to be good, and then I can take it. So I think this could be something like you say there. This could actually open up doors for Fremantle, Richmond, and potentially North Melbourne or the Eagles. And no one's talking about this trade because Richmond have too many picks. Brisbane don't have enough.
Yeah, and there's a lot of clubs who are probably looking for picks. There are some pick-rich clubs out there who don't have the list spots, and then there are clubs who only have a couple and need to find some.
Dennis, I'm going to sit on the fence. I'm going to take personal bias out of it. I genuinely think Collingwood get pick 13. So whoever gets pick 13 gets Dan Houston. Damo, chat, who do you think? Who wins pick 13?
Dennis, I'll give you an answer. It'll be Collingwood.
There you are. There you are. I tried to sit on the fence. I'm a nice guy. But this is the final part of tonight. You've heard all these things, right? You've heard all these things, these rules and stuff. You're now going to look at something really cool. So this is the thing, as a content creator, why I hate the media so much is what Damo just told you, them rules. Them rules you've got in the AFL that you only get the picks that you've got picks for, right? And it always annoys me because every year you have like John Ralph's one this year where he says, Brisbane, they'll trade 20 for 51, 61, 70, 76, 43, 45, and suddenly Brisbane have 14 picks, which works out points-wise, but legally they can't use it. So you'll see some numbers. The red numbers mean at this stage, they don't have enough picks. Yellow means they're spot on, and green means they've got a surplus. Your right-hand side, you've got what's called commitments. You'll see double asterisks means probably not in the draft a rookie. Single asterisks are like late picks, really late picks. And anyone without an asterisk means they're going to be top 25 footballers. Definitely in the main draft. Then we've got changes. So the list spots are as of today. And then we've got some little caveats. So we can talk about them. So Adelaide currently have 5 list spots. They have no one to do business with on their list, apart from Peatling has nominated them. They've got Tyler Welsh definitely coming in. So you can see here, this is going to be interesting because Adelaide are one of them teams for me to watch on how much do they want pick 4. Is pick 4 Sid Draper, who is slightly sliding down the draft, or is a future pick's probably going to be used in the Peatling deal? But they probably need to find some picks somewhere because they don't want the AFL handout system of 78 and 79.
Yeah, I'm just having a look, and the Giants have too many picks for their list spots, but they've said that they're interested in potentially moving 15, 16, and 21 for a much higher pick. Could we see like 15 and 16 or 16 and 21 and Peatling go for pick 4 or something? Like, could we see that potentially be a deal or something along those lines to move them up that way, just to give Adelaide those extra picks? Or could we see Gold Coast Gold Coast and Richmond have too many picks, so forget about that. Could we see Geelong and Western Bulldogs potentially have some deals with future picks and current picks to give the Bulldogs a bit more currency in the Bailey Smith deal? there's lots of deals going on with clubs with lots of picks, with clubs with not enough picks. So we could see some really complicated deals where there's future thirds and fourths and seconds all being thrown about just to give other clubs just enough picks for the draft and the spots that they have. And maybe the Peatling deal is where Adelaide and the Giants sort of make all of that work.
I think you nailed it, because you look at the guys that are out of contract at GWS, like they've got quite a few things to sort out, but you look at the players, Connor Stone, they're quite confident he stays, but if he goes, that's going to be a pick, isn't it? They've got Jake Stringer and Dylan Shield that are there into, which again really affects them picks, because they're probably going to do a 2-for-1 deal, aren't they? And you look at what's linked away, it basically evens out with what's coming in as well. So I'm with you. I think that Peatling deal is going to be like vomit. It's going to be vomit. It's going to be something like a future second, 53, 56, 74 coming in. They use 74 and 56 to match a Welsh bid. And so, the great thing about being South Australian is nearly everyone outside of the top 40 is South Australian, which is quite useful if you're Adelaide.
Yeah. The draft really opens up towards the back end. So you'll get clubs really just focusing on their players from their own state. So yeah, Adelaide have picks in perfect position, and they're only really fighting with Port Adelaide for the other homegrown talent.
And great question here from my main man, Lou, Lions. Lions currently a very interesting position. They're really one to watch this window, and I'm glad Ralphie, I take the piss out of him, but it's always good when Ralphie brings it to people's attention. They only have 1098's worth of picks. So 1098 is roughly, if you go on here, you can bid match to pick 11 with that. And we know Ashcroft's going to be about 1766 at best. 20 is guaranteed to be traded off. Like that is the surest thing in the AFL is 20 gets traded out. And you can see some clubs here, because you mentioned Fremantle. You've got 5 list spots. It's probably going to be 6 by the end of it, because you'll re-sign. You'll re-sign Noble. And then you've got 2 guys you're guaranteed to get in. So that makes 4 list spots. You could be one of them guys that looks at that 30, tries to make it a little bit better, eh?
Yeah, I think with next year's picks being so uncertain about how far you can trade in advance, I think we might see a lot of clubs try and do a lot of deals using this year's selection. So every club walks into next year with their whole or most of their complement of picks. Obviously, we've seen the Carlton and Collingwood deal for pick 13 where they're using future selections, but I don't know if future selections will be a massive part of deals for a large selection of clubs waiting to see what happens next season. So yeah, so Fremantle, if they sign Max Noble, that only gives them 4 list spots. They've actually got another list spot with the category B opening as well. So, I mean, that doesn't really count for a list spot. But, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of... I mean, you look at Essendon, they've only got 2 picks and 7 list spots. How's that going to work out? You look at Geelong, they have 9 list spots and 4 picks, and they're probably going to trade 2 of them for Bailey Smith. So, again, how's that going to work out? They're going to be stuck with 81 and 97 and 115 and just some crazy picks that, and hey, everyone says that Geelong know how to find the diamonds in the rough. Well, I think they just enlisted 4 of them. So,
you make a great point. Like, a lot of clubs, when you look at this, they're in a bit of strife, aren't they? Like, everyone's talking about Carlton, but I would actually say, list management-wise, the healthiest clubs here at the moment by Flemington straight are Fremantle, Richmond, St Kilda and Carlton. Like, they're guys who have all had planning to the situation of where their list spot is. Where some of the others, it's almost like list management is a thing of the past.
Everyone wants to find that Sean Manor or Sam Closey or Anthony Caminiti, you know, that guy that slips under the radar but is dominating state league. But you can't find those guys every single year. And I've probably find that clubs have found that player every single year if we look back. But you get just as many Mark Wileys as you do Sean Manners. So just the amount of list spots, it's incredible to see some of them, especially a club like Geelong who are reaching that sort of tip of the iceberg with their age, and you have other clubs in that same sort of list age profile that probably do need a good set of selections to really replenish their list properly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. And like another club that I'm looking at that I think are in a bit of strife are Dogs here. Like, I was really shocked when I look at this. 35-48. Okay, we can pretty much guarantee they're going to get 17 in here from Geelong. But when you look at their out-of-contract players, I always look at these out-of-contract players when it's this stage. And genuinely, when it's this stage, it's kind of like you're thinking if you'll get anything better in the draft. It's usually that situation. If you're out of contract now and we're waiting, it's almost as if to say, we're just hoping we find someone better than you. If not, we'll get you. You look at the players they're potentially losing in that 8. Bailey Smith, brilliant. Then you've got JJ, Alex Keefe, Riley Garcia, Charlie Clark, Jack McRae, Caleb Daniel, all linked with moves away or out of contract. With 35, 48 and 17, you ain't replacing anyone on that list who's played football.
Yeah. I mean, their Western Bulldogs list is in quite a good spot, but the guys that you're talking about, they're guys that they've drafted over the last 2 to 3 years. So it's essentially undone their most recent draft. And I mean, we saw Aiden O'Driscoll have to retire. He was one of their top selections, or one of their selections last year. Charlie Clark was one of their most recent selections. Who knows if he earns another contract? Riley Garcia is linked away. He's another one of those guys that they've selected in a draft to try and, you know, give their list a bit of youth. And so it comes with danger letting these guys get out of contract and then getting your list to a point where you can't hold on to them because you need to replenish at the draft. And then you look at the picks that they have, only 35 and 48 at the moment. How are they going to replace those players with viable actual players who can play tomorrow? Some clubs don't have the luxury of waiting for players to develop for 2 to 3 years in the background. And Western Bulldogs, I think we saw that with the development of like Sam Darcy and Jamara Ugle-Hagan and the way that Tim English has come on and the way Ed Richards has transformed into a midfielder, they've got nothing wrong with their development, but their list is in a good spot for who's playing, who's in their best 23. But beyond that, there are some massive holes.
Yeah, and you can see why they're asking for the extra pick, which I thought was really interesting today. Sam Powell was quite adamant that they want 2 picks at least for Bailey Smith. So you'd imagine 17 and 38, it gets them where they need to do. It gets them to where they need to be from a list strategy. But like you say, when you're losing players of McRae's ilk, when you're losing players of Daniel's ilk, when you're potentially losing players of Bailey Smith's, they're players that are your best 22 or at least your best 28, aren't they? That they're really taking a chance. And found it interesting Garcia was linked away, because as soon as I saw the players they were losing this year, I was like, well, Garcia, at least you've put 2-3 years into him. Like, at least he's been apprenticeships. He's had that apprenticeship that he needs. They could be in a real sticky situation if they all choose to leave.
Yeah, for sure. And they were lucky to get Garcia with such a late pick 68 or whatever it was, the year he was drafted, because he did his ACL that year. But before his ACL, he was shaping up to be one of WA's top prospects. So they've been lucky to get him where they did, but they haven't given him the opportunities. And some would say hasn't earned those opportunities either. But if he can get back to the way he was before his ACL injury in his under 18s year, whoever gets him, whether it's Bulldogs holding on to him or Port trading him in or West Coast trading him in, if they can get him back to where he was, that's going to be a bargain pickup for wherever he is.
Mate, I agree with you. I mean, I'm surprised some of them West clubs haven't come in and had a sniff. You know what I mean? I'm surprised, because we know Jack Carroll's been linked to go there, back to Eagles. Eagles are into him. Surprised that some of the clubs, because especially Fremantle and West Coast, you've probably 26 probably opens the eyes, doesn't it? Opens the eyes. 26 a pick around there probably opens the eyes a little bit when you look at the situation, because some of these clubs, as you can see, are going to have to sell.
Yeah. I mean, he has been linked to West Coast on and off. I don't know how strong the link is. He was looked at by Fremantle briefly, but I don't know where that link has gone, because the links to Fremantle just seem to be talked about once and then no one says anything ever again. And it might have something to do with most of the mail coming from Victorian-based media, and they don't really. And Fremantle have become a club that holds their cards close to their chest.
Mate, you are like the ugly duckling, with all due respect, of WA, aren't you? Like, everyone gets, like West Coast Eagles are Carlton. Everyone who wants to move to Perth gets linked with Eagles. It's like anyone who says they want to come to Victoria, Carlton's name is always involved, whether we want them or not. Like Lachlan Scholl, that was like one of my favourite rumours. Carlton want him, and then Nick Austin's like, actually, the first part of that question is the best. When it was John Ralph asked him the question, Lachlan Scholl rumours, obviously his granddad played for the club, and it was the way Nick Austin went, who? And then he was like, oh, the Adelaide player. It was so good. Like, it was one of my favourite moments. And I was like, you can tell there's rumours he wants to come to Victoria. It's Carlton. Pixel, I'm going to be totally honest with you. He's next year's draft, so I'm not miles ahead, but I have seen 2 games. Saw him at the National Futures game and one Allies game this year. He looks like he's got that hard engine and likes to burst through stoppage. So, I mean, he's a Brisbane Lions boy, so you know he's good. Like, you know he's good. Like, we're not going to lie here. You guys do it really well. One of the questions in there people were asking was, why would they trade pick 20? So what I've done here is we'll create a real life example, right? So let's have a look at my draft board. I've got Levi Ashcroft as the first best talent, but if I was drafting, so I'm going to have a guess. Who's got picks? You know what? I reckon a bid will come here, pick 4. So let's just say pick 4, the bid is here, right? The bid is here. So that means we've got to find 1766 of points to match this guy, right? So that's what would happen. Lee Ashcroft, bid comes in. Levi Ashcroft, we've got to put in a bid for 1766, right? So right now, if I kept 20, right, 948 plus 146 is 1094. I'm just over, what, 700 points, which is roughly pick 21 away. So if I sold 21, though, for, let's just say, the deal we suggested. So let's just go crazy there and give them, what's that in points? That's 1378. Let's just say they sold it for that, right? That there is worth $15.25, so it's only $200, only $200 owing. So you can see that's why, in how stupid our system is pick 20, even though it's a better pick, it's actually worth less than 4 chip picks. Like, that's why they've changed the system. Like, it's ridiculous because it's like, do you remember at school? I don't know if you ever had this joke, but if you had a mate who was stupid at maths, you used to make a joke to him saying, I'll trade these 5 gold coins for your one £20 note. And you were effectively telling him, I'm giving you £5 for $20, right? It's kind of like that's actually real. When you used to bully your mate who was mathematically stupid, the AFL actually encourages that.
It's an interesting way to put it, but yeah, basically that's what they're doing.
Do you know what I mean? Like they yeah. You see, Damien used to. I used to do it to my little brother as well. I scadged my little brother Liam. If you're watching, I'm sorry. We used to get £5 pocket money a fortnight. I used to give him £2 for his $5 note for about 3 years. Right? Do you know what I mean? And when he had a big, and we used to put them in like glass. We had like these glass things. And I used to say, look at yours, Liam. Yours is half full, bro. Mine's just at the bottom with these shitty little notes. Like, I used to convince him for ages he was on a good deal. And it was only when I moved out of home that he realised that over a period of 4 years, I'd extorted him out of about $250 per annum. But there you are. Liam, I'm sorry if you're watching. I love you. Can't get sued, can I, for that? Can he sue me? If he sues me, I'll beat him up. I'm bigger than him. But that's what happens there. But then we'll finish off with one of the big ones is people are asking, why would Carlton want pick 12? So if we go to, you know what? I don't often do this, but I love you, chat. And you've been really well behaved and asked really sensible questions. Let's go to is it this book? I don't know. There we are. So if we go here, right, ignore the round picks. I haven't updated that. This is like my personal one, so you don't often see this. But this was before the combine, before the last round. So some of this has changed, but it's a pretty good indication. You look where Carlton are now. Carlton are about here. Oh, you know what? We'll do this, look. We'll do this. Where is it? We can actually do it. We can actually fix it. Pom, don't be silly. We can fix it. There we are. I fixed it. So if we look at the first round, why would Carlton want that pick? If you go here, in this 13 range, you've probably got players like, the colours, this is their junior teams. It helps me see it. I can look and see Bendigo Pioneers, Peel Thunder. My eyes are trained. My eyes are trained. So you don't usually see this. I make this more simplified usually. But if you look, Fremantle and Carlton are in a really good position in this draft. But Luke Traynor is someone I'm really looking at. Now, great point was made in the chat. He has had concussion issues, but he's come back and played the back end of the season pretty fine. There's always a risk with these players. But Luke Traynor is probably exactly what Carlton are looking for. 194. I believe at the combine, he didn't attend as a competitor, but he was there. And someone was saying that he's 196 at the moment. He probably suits what Carlton are looking for. Tall, good defender, good ball user. He would be quite high up, wouldn't he, on Carlton's radar? Would you think, Damo?
Yeah, just thinking about who you guys have recently delisted. So Dom McCooey's out the door. You delisted Caleb Marchbank. Yeah, so he feels a need for you guys.
Like, who do you like on there? Like Fremantle, it's Bo Allen, isn't it?
Yeah, I like Bo Allen. I don't think Sam Lawler's gonna get down to us. I've heard that maybe Finn O'Sullivan could drop, but I don't think that he'll drop that far. I like Alex Taru. I like Joe Berry, those sorts of players. So, yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think they could be really good ones because I've got Alex Taru now. He's probably going to be about here. Toby Trevalera is a guy that I really like, and he probably is. Would you say this is fair to say? Because my issue with halfback flankers, and I don't want to offend anyone because if you want Dan Houston, that's on you. My issue with halfback flankers is you look at the good ones, they're all picks in their 40s and above, and a lot of them have failed at their original job. Teams like, you look at Dan Houston, he was signed as Jack Silvani, a third forward, became a halfback flanker. Jordan Dawson, inside contested ball, was deemed too small at his first club by Sydney, stuck on the halfback flank, made a career out of it, then managed to get back in the midfield in his mid-20s. A lot of these quality halfbacks, Sheasel, Dacos, they're either learning another job. Toby has got a little bit of a gift here that he's an elite kick, high 80%, ranked the best kick in the draft. He's quick, he's got an engine, and he plays inside and outside midfield. If you were looking for Dan Houston, let's just say Carlton get 13 and 12. Let's just say that happens. If Carlton have an option, maybe with Fremantle, we have a good working relationship with you. And I'm sure you guys would probably do future first, future second for pick 11. Wouldn't you? That would be a good deal if Carlton came in for that.
If we're talking about as it stands right now, Shai Bolton deal did not go through, yes, probably would.
Do you know what I mean? I reckon Carlton could probably get up the draft using that pick. I reckon St Kilda were quite adamant Sam Layla was their favourite. I don't think he's going to be on the board. I think he's gone by about pick 5. So Carlton probably have an option to get up. In my opinion, I think Toby would be it for Carlton. Like, if you said to me, Carlton have 2 picks in the top 20, they leave with Luke Traynor and Toby, I think that helps the risk with Luke Traynor. Or you got Alex Taru. If you got Alex Taru, Toby, and then I think towards the end of the draft, Carlton could maybe look at a small forward where there is small forwards galore around 25 to 35. It's a healthy position though, isn't it? These picks here, I'm going to make a bold call now. Someone in this range, when I update this sheet, will be the best player in the draft.
Well, you've highlighted Leo Lombard, so yeah, you're probably right.
He could be good. Do you know what I mean?
I'm a massive fan of Leo Lombard.
He looks good, doesn't he? He looks like a footballer as well. You know what? My favourite player in this draft, just so everyone knows, is Sid Draper. I'm huge on the Drapes. And I'm also huge. So I don't rate Harvey Langford because he's very flat-footed. I also rate this guy, his mate, Cooper Hines. And how I'd describe all the hype you'll see is Cal Toomey is in love with Harvey Langford. Right, Cal Toomey loves him. So this is another Pom versus Cal Toomey. We had me team Nick Dacos, him team Jesnon Francis. I'm team Cooper, and the reason for why is if you know when you go on Temu and they have the same shit rebranded, Cooper is the Temu version of Harvey, but he is quicker. So it's like when you buy a fake iPad, you're going to use Apple when you buy an official one, but when you buy the dodgy one from Temu, you can, play everything.
Pommy, you and your comparisons.
Yeah, Cooper, if you're watching, I'm not saying that you're a dodgy knockoff either.
I was just watching a video where a couple of blokes compared Wish and Temu to like against each other, and Temu lost every matchup. So
Okay, well, maybe a bad analogy. It's Cooper. If you're watching, I love you, bro. You are one of my favorites. Like honestly, I love you. You're my favorite. But but you know what I mean. Like Cooper. Like my argument is with Harvey Langford is he looks sexy and it looks good. But then you watch them play for the Stingrays. Cooper does exactly the same, but the knock on Harvey is he's slow. Cooper's faster and does the same job. Like, I love Cooper. If you're a list manager and you get Cooper, just remember these words. You win the battle of the Dandenongs. Come and see Uncle Pom and go, it was Pom's idea. Well, Damo, what are you doing this week? You've got a wonderful podcast, haven't you, Damo, where you do the daily bites. So tell us about that, where we can find you, so the ladies and gentlemen of the Twitter sphere can come and see you.
Yeah, so daily episodes just covering the day's movements, if anything, even daily episodes if nothing happens. But yeah, at Footy Mailbag on Twitter. The podcast is called Moving Parts, just over the trade period. Host that with the wonderful Stephen of SDS Supercoach, another YouTube channel.
Well, I'm putting the link in the chat. There we are. So if you go over there, you can go and see Damo. Go and see him. Say, we met you on Pom. We love you. Well, I will be back tomorrow with another one of these shows. It's Wednesday. Oh, wait a minute. I've got to upload every day. So, yeah, there will be another upload. Is it Wednesday tomorrow? Jesus. Time's flying. Yes, I have an upload tomorrow, so I will come up with something. I've got a load of video ideas, so I'll just choose one that I've got to edit. But I'll be back this time tomorrow. So thank you very much. Thank you to Damo. Look after yourselves. Peace, love, and light. We'll see you next time. Bye.